All right. You guys want to see a magic trick? Yeah. All right. I have never done this before. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I feel like this is a creative bunch, so I figured this is a good place to try. So like 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting at the island of my kitchen in my apartment, and I have my laptop open, and I have a prescription pill bottle next to me with half a pill sitting on top. And for 2 hours, I'm staring into Google, Reddit, ChatGPT, trying to figure out whether or not I'm going to take this pill. For context, last year I was sick for like 6 months straight, upper respiratory infections. I went to the doctor, and when I was there, I said, I'm also feeling anxious. I am a keynote speaker. I feel anxious before my talks. I feel anxious during my talks. It's uncomfortable. And actually, I'm feeling anxious on a daily basis. And she said, well, here's this pill. Take half a pill with dinner for 1 week, and then go up to a full pill, and in 4 to 6 weeks, it'll feel like you are experiencing a warm hug. It's an SSRI. So I said, okay, cool. I go home, I look up more information on this pill, and I start to realize that once you hop on this ride, it doesn't seem like it's so easy to hop off of it. So I decided at that time, okay, I'll just do breathwork, meditation, whatever. Fast forward to about a month ago, I'm skiing in Denver with 3 of my friends, people I'm extremely comfortable with, doing something that I really enjoy. And I felt nervous the entire time. I felt like I had an elephant stepping on my chest. I felt like I had a frog in my throat that I couldn't clear. And that nervousness continued into the weeks to come, and it continued into this journey that I'm on. I'm spending an hour one-on-one with 10,000 different people. And in these 1-hour meetings, people would ask me about myself, and I would be too nervous to get the words out. So I sat there for 2 hours. I stared into the internet to see whether or not I should take this pill. And I decided again, I think I'll just stick to breathwork, meditation, whatever for now. That was like a week or so ago. And I don't know at this point if I made the right decision or not. If I should have taken the pill, I still feel anxious. And I sometimes feel like I'm living a muted version of myself because the entertainer, playful side of me is tucked away beneath this fear. So did you catch it? Half of you are like, what the hell is this guy talking about right now? But if I did it correctly, you may no longer see today's Creative Mornings speaker in front of you. You may see a guy who has his own struggles, who's got something to figure out. He hasn't quite come up with a solution yet. And I think that there's incredible power in getting to know people. We can transform the people in front of us. You can transform a total stranger into the love of your life. You can transform a classmate into a business partner just by getting to know their story on a deeper level. And I love this. It's driven me for the last 10 years. Now I'm lucky enough to speak about the journey that I'm on. And I'm speaking in May at Vanguard, which I'm really excited about. And I want to share with you how that came to be. So in 2022, I met Jack. If you're not familiar with Jack, he runs the Art of Medicine. It's a compounding pharmacy on Broad and Mount Vernon. And he reached out to me in 2018 and said, Rob, I love what you're doing. I want to be part of your project. And I said, Jack, I'm about to go to LA for 9 months, but I've got the next week. If you're available, we can meet. If not, I'll hit you up when I get back. So he couldn't meet that week. I said, I'll hit you up when I get back. Of course, 9 months go by. I get back to Philly. I forget that Jack ever messaged me. Luckily for me, Jack followed up in 2022, nearly 5 years later. And he said, Rob, I'd love to meet with you. So that time we actually made it happen. And I met with Jack, and he says, Rob, you do this full time, been doing it full time since 2016. How do you support yourself? I said, I'm a keynote speaker. And he said, well, I belong to an association of compounding pharmacists. Maybe we could hire you to speak. A week later, he introduces me to their CEO, and they hire me to speak that March in Alabama for their association. Now, when I was there, I asked the CEO, who are 2 people that you know who could benefit from my message? He introduces me to 2 of his friends. One of them totally ignores me. The other has me pitch her on what my talk would be. She didn't have anything for me at the time. But 4 months later, she says, Rob, I've got a gig for you. I want to hire you to speak at it. I think it'd be a great opportunity for you to speak on a global stage. The gig is in Bangalore, India. So a year after I meet Jack, I find myself in Bangalore speaking to this group of corporate real estate professionals. And I had these amazing experiences. The guy on the left here, I got in his car, total stranger. He drove me 2.5 hours outside of the city of Bangalore to this temple site that had this beautiful 360 view of the land all around it. The girl on the right, we met at a coffee shop, but I connected especially with the MC of the event. He spoke for them again in Malaysia, And when he was there, he told the CEO people loved Rob's message. They really enjoyed it. So the next year, I got an email from her, and she said, Rob, we want to hire you again. This time, it's in Berlin. So 2 years after I meet Jack, I find myself in Berlin speaking to a different region of these corporate real estate professionals. Had a wonderful time, got to see some amazing sights. The girl on the left here, I met her the Friday before I left. My flight was on Sunday. She said, come out to karaoke with me and my friends on Saturday night, which was risky because I was out drinking with them till like 2:30 a.m. and I had an early flight the next day. But I'm in this karaoke booth with me, a girl from the UK. She flew in from the Netherlands. We had a guy from Hong Kong. We had a girl from Austria, a guy from Germany, a girl from Ukraine. Like, I feel like we had the United Nations in this karaoke booth singing together. And it was just one of those experiences, the spontaneous connection you dream about when you are a kid. But another cool thing that happened when I was in Berlin, the day after I arrived, I'm sitting in the lobby waiting for my tech check. And I see a guy in a Phillies hat walk by. So of course I had to open my mouth and say something to him. Turns out he's from Philly as well. His friend is attending the conference. So we chat about that. An hour later, I get a message from him on LinkedIn. He says, my friend Diane is actually attending the conference. She would like to meet with you. She's the head of global real estate for Vanguard. I'm like, I would love to meet with Diane too. That sounds great. So the next day, Diane and I spend an hour together for my journey. This is September 2024. And last month, Diane calls me and says, Rob, we have this event at Vanguard in May. We'd love for you to be the speaker at it. So Vanguard, incredible for my credibility as a speaker. The experience of traveling to and speaking in Berlin, traveling to and speaking in India, speaking at the Compounding Pharmacy Conference. Like 4 events, literal thousands of dollars of revenue for me, 2 of the coolest cultural experiences that I've had in the last decade of my life, all because I met Jack. And the crazy thing to me is that I literally almost missed it because I didn't reply to his message. And I think that we have blessings walking past us every single day that never come into our life because we are too afraid to say hello to people. We think we are better than them. We think we should only connect with people when there's some predetermined value. And I think that that's a mistake. See, I'm driven by a couple core beliefs. The simple one is, the more people you know, the better life is. I don't care how many people know me, but I think it's fun to know people. I like to walk into a room like this and see familiar faces, which I am today, which I really like. The deeper level of it is I believe every human interaction holds the potential to change your life. And if you truly believe that, it makes sense to go out and meet more people. So this has driven my journey over the last 10 years, and that brings us to today's theme, which is Camino, way or path. And I love that they include the words journey, choice, and discovery in the theme because I was on a path with my life that I didn't enjoy. I made a choice to change that path, and I ended up on one of the greatest journeys of discovery that I could be on in my entire life. For context, I grew up in Norristown, so the suburbs, in a very traditional family where you're expected to go to school, get your job, find your wife, settle down, have kids. So, like both my older siblings, I went to Penn State University, and I realized something there. I loved meeting people. This is me and my friend Brett at a party our freshman year. You can tell it's my freshman year because I'm still wearing my Catholic high school boys sweater. And Brett introduced me. He said, become a tour guide. These people, you're going to love them. So I became a tour guide. Imagine there's tour guides there. And they became my best friends on campus. They're actually the people I was skiing with in Denver a few weeks ago. But I ended up becoming lifelong friends with them. I'm in their weddings. I'm watching their kids grow now. You all have experiences like this in your own life, right? But I realized at Penn State that it was the people that I was meeting, not what I was learning in the classroom. It was the people that were driving the fulfillment of that experience for me. So when I graduated in 2013 with my finance degree and I went into Deloitte Consulting on 17th and Market, it felt like a stark contrast. Suddenly I went from this warm, authentic connection where you meet someone out at a party and they become your friend or you sit next to them in class to, okay, now I'm in a cubicle every day and I'm only hearing from people when they want something from me or when there's some agenda to the meeting. Like, connection went from this warm experience to a cold and calculated thing. And I didn't like that. And I felt the same way when I went to RJ Metrics. Now, you might be familiar with RJ Metrics. I loved RJ Metrics. It was a great company. I loved the people that I worked with, but I worked in outbound sales. So I thought I was going into this field of connection, but it was really just a numbers game. You're filling the top of the funnel, hoping that enough people fall out of the bottom to become clients. And it was disappointing for me because as we go through life, we're like, people talk up connection. We're taught it's not what you know, it's who you know. We are taught your network is your net worth. We're taught that people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And then we graduate and we get out into the real world, and what do people say about connection? I don't have time for that, right? People feel like they don't have time for it. And I thought, well, screw that. I want to see what happens when we make time for connection. So in November of 2015, I decided I'm going to meet 10,000 people one-on-one for 1 hour each. I met the first person. He was the founder of BillyPen.com, November 11th of 2015. Over the next 8 months, I met about 100 more people. At the end of those 8 months, RJ Metrics was acquired, and I was laid off. I decided, to my parents' dismay, to jump into this journey full time. Started meeting about 5 new people every single day. I lived in LA for a year and a half. I lived in Hoboken for 9 months. I drove across the country 6 different times, met people in over 20 different cities along the way. COVID happened. I went online. I've met people virtually from over 90 different countries around the world. And to date, I have met 7,436 people on my goal to 10,000. And it's been incredible. It's been life-changing, to say the least. I met people like Zach King. You might know of him if you're in the creative field. If you're not familiar, he makes these videos on TikTok and Instagram, illusion videos. He's got like 100 million followers across all platforms. So he finds me on TikTok in 2020. He says, Rob, come out to LA. We'll go lobster diving together in California. I said, Zach, that's awesome. Let's do it. I get there. We go at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night. I thought this would be a daytime activity. I throw on the wetsuit, and you can't see, but it has a weighted belt on it, so it makes it easier to sink to the bottom of the ocean. And I'm down there for an hour trying to catch lobsters with my bare hands. Now, fortunately, I survived. I'm still here to tell the tale. Afterwards, we went to his buddy Aaron's. We cooked him up. Had a wonderful experience. I wasn't going to go lobster diving on my own. Zach introduced me to it. My friend Scotty here heard about my project. She said, Rob, come down to Round Hill, Virginia, and stay at my Goat Loft Airbnb. I did not know that Round Hill, Virginia existed. So I kind of think being on this journey is like being a character in a video game, and you have these people that you meet along the way, and they give you some bit of information, and sometimes they expose you to a new part of the map that is then available in your mind. But I met people from their community, and every night I came home to these 35 goats at this loft for a few days. I met Porter, a little 5-year-old boy with Down syndrome. His mom reached out to me on his behalf to meet with him. I met Ruth, a 100-year-old woman who sadly passed away this past summer, but they taught me what it's like to grow up and think in different generations. And this interesting thing started to happen. People started to share their gifts with me. My friend Matt, when I met with him, he said, Rob, I'm a flight attendant for Southwest Air. Wherever we fly, you can use my buddy pass and fly there for free. I said, I know you're being polite, Matt, but I'm going to do this. So 3 weeks later, I took his buddy pass and I went to Maui, Hawaii. And when I was there, I booked the cheapest hostel that I could find, and I met this girl, Lindsay, and I met her friend, Sam. And they were roommates from California, and we just traveled together for the next day. They went on their way, I went on my way. But they had great chemistry with each other. So I wasn't surprised when a few years later they messaged me and they said, Rob, we got engaged. I said, oh, that's awesome. I knew that you had great chemistry. I was surprised when they said, yeah, it's great. We were wondering if you would officiate our wedding. So 2 summers ago, I flew out to Sacramento. I married them outdoors in 114-degree heat. An amazing time. But I also gained the power to create change in other people's lives. This girl, Lauren, on the left here, told me that she moved to Utrecht, Netherlands, and she is an American expat. She didn't know anyone there. She was finding it hard to create friends. I said, Lauren, I've heard Utrecht before because I know it's not Rotterdam and I know it's not Amsterdam. And I know that I've heard Christina, who moved there last year as an American expat. I put them in touch with each other. And I got this photo a week later. They spent 3 hours out to dinner with each other, becoming friends. And it warmed my heart last week when I got a message from Christina who said, we just celebrated our 1-year friend anniversary. So how cool, right? And it's a simple thing to create an introduction for people, but it's a big change in their life. There's power to connection. In my apartment here in Fairmount, I brought 15 people together for a cocktail party because I said, you are all living in the neighborhood anyways. Come meet each other. Like, you should know who else is in the neighborhood. I was on Kelly Clarkson's talk show in 2019. That was really cool. But the best part was the entire audience was filled with people that I'd met through my journey. So beyond that, I even had people in Boston, 2 cousins in Toronto, a guy in Germany, a girl in Ethiopia, who decided to look at my journey and recreate it in their own ways in some capacity. My friend Hannah in Ethiopia tweeted at me and was like, Rob, I don't know if you know this, but I was inspired by your project to meet 100 people here. I've already met over 22. It's fascinating to me that by choosing to be authentic on my path, I influence someone else's path halfway across the world. Isn't that crazy how we can do that? And I learned a lot from this project. One of the things that I learned is to have a sense of gratitude. I met my friend Fernanda in 2018. And she arrived, we were sitting at a sunny cafe in Los Angeles with our coffee, tears running down her face, because when she arrived, she said, Rob, it's great to meet you. I don't really want to talk about me, though. I want to tell you about my younger brother, Eduardo. So she told me about how tight they were with each other, how they both grew up in Brazil. They're living in Los Angeles. They used to play pranks on each other. Eduardo would bring her balloons at the airport that said, congrats, it's a boy, even though she wasn't pregnant. And we're sitting and she said, Rob, a year ago, my younger brother was hit and killed by a drunk driver. And to make matters worse, she said, Rob, when I was 9 years old growing up in Brazil, my dad was hit and killed by a drunk driver. So I left that meeting thinking to myself, how could I not be thankful for the fact that I could FaceTime my parents? I could call my brother, I could text my sister. Like I learned it doesn't matter what car I have, it doesn't matter what my house looks like, what people think about me on Instagram. What matters to me is spending time with the people that I care about. So it totally shifted what I see as valuable in my life as I heard other people's stories. The other thing that happened was this awareness of the world around us and the opportunities that exist in it. That same summer 2018, I decided to go to San Diego for a weekend. And I asked people if they had introductions. My cousin Jill says, I'm going to email introduce you to my friend Tyson. Now he replies to the email. He says, sure, Rob, I'd love to meet with you. Do you want to go up in a modern or historical aircraft when we meet? I was like, Tyson, that's exactly what I was thinking for our time together. How did you know? So I'm pumped. I get there. I meet him at the hangar. I hop out of my car into his. The gate swings open. And we're rolling up to the plane, and he very nonchalantly decides this is the most appropriate time to turn to me. He says, oh, Rob, by the way, you don't have to fly in the plane if you don't want because it's amateur built. I built it myself. I was like, Tyson, you could have put that in the email. It's one more line. Like, you didn't have to save that for right now. And some of you are thinking, get over yourself, Rob. People fly private all the time, but I've never before then or since then seen a plane that looks like this. And if you look a little closer, it says experimental in all caps on the side. But he taught me that there's so much opportunity out there. I took the opportunity to get into the plane, and I would describe it as fighting off a panic attack, trying not to throw up from the G-forces of the turns, and then just settling in, having one of the best hours of my life. So if you think about all of your experiences in life, everything that you can conceive of, because you can't comprehend what you haven't been exposed to, you can fit it into this little box. But the reality is the world is so much bigger than just your experiences. And out in that rest of the world, in the bigger box, there are songs you haven't heard, there are movies you haven't seen, there are people you haven't connected with, solutions to problems that you haven't considered. And I've learned when you go out and meet people, what's important to them becomes important to you, and you increase your capacity of those experiences. You increase your sphere of relevance. So when I went on this journey, I kind of wanted to understand, like, we have these serendipitous moments that occur in our life. Can we create and manufacture fate by going out and meeting more people? And I understood unequivocally the answer is yes. And it's happened many times for me. And one of the most important times, I met this girl, Michelle, in 2019. And now, I started my project November 2015. I took it full-time June of 2016. By the summer of 2018, I had $500 left to my name. By the summer of 2019, I had $200 left to my name. And then 2 months later, I met Michelle, who was introduced to me by my friend Bernardo, who I met here in Philly in August of 2016. Long story short, Michelle says, Rob, I'm a keynote speaker. I did this project to overcome a new fear for 100 consecutive days. And I speak about it now, and she said, there's room for you in this industry. And because of my conversation with Michelle, I started sharing my story on stage. I did my first paid speech in April of 2021. And I'm now approaching 100 paid speeches this year. And as someone who used to have $200, the last 2 years I did over 6 figures in revenue as a creative, which feels really good, right? To get paid doing what you are passionate about. And all of that happened in the way that the future is now bright for me. I hope I went from a starving artist to a surviving artist. Now I'm trying to go to a thriving artist. But that happened because of my connection with Michelle, which happened because of my connection with Bernardo. So I want you to think today as you leave my talk, what blessings are walking past you every single day? It could be someone in this room that could totally change your life. It could be someone who's walking past you, who's sitting next to you at the coffee shop. It could be the message that you currently have left unanswered. Thank you.
Thank you.